Timbuktu, Timbuktu, Timbuktu.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Mendel Rivers to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner. The revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on reports from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still lifes of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he had been saving for just the right occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so goddamn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally screwed Jane on Search for Tomorrow because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry-armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, or Engelbert Humperdinck. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
The revolution will be in Timbuktu. The revolution will tell all truths, no lies. We want to talk about a Professor James Small. He was born 1945 on Arcadia Plantation Village, located on the banks of the Waccamaw River. This lowland rice plantation is located where the Waccamaw, the Pedee, and the Black Rivers converge to meet the Atlantic Ocean on the shores of historic Georgetown, South Carolina. Professor Small was born to a family that traces their descent from enslaved Africans to the Yoruba, Akan, and Ewe people of West Africa. Professor Small's heritage also stems from the Native American ancestors. This is a powerful man, an elder. He's coming to this town. For 11 years, Professor Small served as a principal bodyguard to the late Ella L. Collins, the sister of Malcolm X, then the president of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. I can go on, but I want to bring him on for him to introduce himself properly. Professor James Small, greetings.
Greetings, good evening, brothers.
How you doing? How you doing, Elder?
In Ontario. I'm good.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to have you on.
Come into your community to talk to our people.
Yes, wonderful. So, you were coming here to do a double lecture, and the first lecture is going to happen on Saturday, April the 29th at York University. And you're talking about post-slavery, the trauma. And I want to just, go back a bit. When did you start to travel down the path of consciousness where you trying to seek more enlightenment for yourself? When did that start?
Probably when I was born. I was born in an African village in South Carolina of African people. A grandmother who was a traditional priestess. We call them, in the South, root women. Every one of our community has a root man and root woman, traditional priests and priestesses, who did the healing, delivered the babies, the counseling, the medicine that Western medicine, or the diseases Western medicine couldn't cure. Even the white people came to our people. And so I grew up in that black world. We were in a segregated world for the most part. And our world had not changed from the days of slavery until the time I was born in 45. And black folks, where I grew up, we had our own space. We still do. If you went to that area right now, you will find villages like Simmonsville and Parkersville and Mearsville and Frasersville, which are black towns that have been there for the last 300 years. And so we grew up in a black world. I never had a non-African teacher until I got to college, you know. Everybody that taught me, everybody that took care of me, everybody I shopped with, everything I did in that part of the South was with black people. And so you come out of a world where you fight for yourself, and you fight a resistance, and you know from the beginning it's life or death. Every time you walked out of your house into somebody else's white person's territory, you could lose your life. So it's my 16th birthday gift from my grandmother was a 2-shot Derringer and a box of bullets. How many kids get that for your 16th birthday, you know? So I came out of that kind of world. So that by the time I was 13, 14, we were demonstrating and pushing the civil rights issues and in the streets in our little town. I met Malcolm X at age 16, which changed the way how I view everything from then forward. But my mother was involved in the political struggle. Father was involved in political struggle. My big brother was involved in political struggle. So that's what I've always known.
Now,
that our life was, as Dessalines says, it was about resistance, rebellion, and death. Freedom or death.
yes. Now, in that time, it seems to me it was very segregated. Yet you sound like you were, in a certain way, protected. You were political. You were resistant. And then you look at today where we say we're integrated. Could you make a comparison?
Yeah. The attitude towards segregation that most people know is white people's mythology on how black people felt, and the Negroes who then mimic the white people's myth. In my hometown, we didn't want to mix with white folks. We worked with them. You had a few whites who you associated with. There were certain white stores where you shop, especially for Hawaiians and big items like that. The rest of the time, we had our black world, and we loved our black world. This assumption that all black people in America was praying and scampering to integrate with white people is a myth. Integration was something that was forced and tricked upon the black population of the South, particularly, and for America in general. It wasn't what we were fighting for. We were fighting for desegregation. Desegregation means that we want access to all of the facilities that we pay our tax money for. And we want, as a citizen of this state, not to be restricted or prohibited by anybody based on our color. But we were not fighting to mix with white people. Okay? That's the myth.
Okay,
and
so
integration has never occurred in America. That's a myth.
Okay.
What occurred was the dismantling of the black institutions in favor of white institutions, especially economic institutions. So black institutions and black enterprise was dismantled, and we began to patronize white institutions and white enterprise. They call that integration. That is not integration. That was neocolonialism in its most classic form, carried out as one of the most deceptive operations probably in the history of race in America.
Yes.
I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes, definitely.
Because all of us did not buy into that. Most black people didn't want to have nothing to do Who would want to have to do with your lyncher and your rapists and your murderers if you're in your common sense?
That's deep. Now, here's my next question. We speak about that legacy, the enslavement, and the reason why a lot of people say, let's forget it. We don't need to talk about it. It's painful. Why do we need to talk about it? Why do we need to get to understand it?
The Jews talk about the Holocaust. The same reason today the whole world is observing people celebrating the Passover, an event that is supposed to be thousands of years old, about their incarceration and their enslavement and their genocide. Why would we sit in a world where we honor and revere another people, celebrating and never forgetting and remembering their genocide and their people's resistance to that genocide, but then tell ourselves, let's forget it, it's too painful? That's another myth that doesn't come from the black community, but come from the white community, our enemies, for the most part, who are in that community. All white folks are not our enemies. Many of them actually fought beside us during the Civil War, of course. Many fought with us in terms of our abolition fight in America and in Canada. But most, the culture that have been spawned in the Americas is that of racist and anti-African. And thus, the institutions that permeates North America, and I'm including Canada and the United States, are fundamentally racist in their behavior, attitude, and reaction towards African people. And so we get confused when we tell black folks, forget about your murderers, forget about your robbers, forget about your rapists, forget about the rape, forget about the extortion, forget about the abuse, forget about the lies, forget about the misrepresentation, forget about the taking away of your language, forget about the taking away of your name, forget about all of those things that have crippled you as a human being in the Western world particularly, because it's too painful. That's ridiculous. No organisms in nature does that. Not naturally. No organism in nature, especially the human organisms. And like I said, we're celebrating Passover today. That event happened thousands of years ago, supposedly. And certainly the Jews will not let you forget the Holocaust of Germany. And we all praise them for taking such a strong stand. Why we have a whole state of Israel existing because of that Holocaust. They're not being asked to forget it. They're not being told it's too painful. We sound like foolish little children when we let somebody else create a false dialogue and then attribute it to our mind's intent concerning our attitude about our history, and we accept that as truth and normalcy.
Yes. Now, what is the post-slavery, what is the post-slave trauma syndrome disorder? Is that a theory? What is that?
Don't you be stuttering on that word now. We got to really talk about that. When we say post, we're talking about something that happened after. Slavery, we're talking about the physical genocide committed against African people during that era that we call the transatlantic slave trade. I don't like that term because there was no transatlantic slave trade because we were not involved in a trade with anybody. It was the transatlantic genocide and war against African people and the enslaving of African people as a result of the war of aggression by Europeans and Arabs against African people. And they called that event, which lasted for hundreds of years, the transatlantic slave trade. And so when I say post-slavery trauma, the slavery, at least the chattel aspect of slavery, ended, but the trauma of it still exists. It is in our very DNA. It is in the culture around us. It is in the language. It is in the literature. It is in the theater. It's all about us, the trauma that it caused.
What are some of that?
Syndrome. Let me finish.
Yeah.
When we say syndrome, it means it continues because no one has repaired it. You damage something and you don't repair it and you expect it to be normal. No. Well, you have to understand what post-slavery trauma syndrome is, and that means that the African in his and her wholeness, culturally, spiritually, intellectually, have been damaged, fractured, and broken by European cultural aggression, physical aggression, and economic aggression. And if we don't repair that, the African will never be a whole person again.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the action that comes out of this? Obviously, there are some things that some lived action, or some of the lived action come out of this trauma.
Just self-hate, the lack of self-worth, the lack of self-value, the lack of self-esteem, almost across the board generally for the African population, not only in the Americas, but at home on the continent itself, because someone took away your language. Language carries your spiritual value system. It is in your language that the history and the culture of your people is carried. So when you take away the language, you've already committed an act of genocide, and I think that the UN Charter speaks to that even now. The culture of a people. Culture is to cultivate. Culture is how you learn the intergenerational transmission of the wisdom of your ancestors that was concerned to be the best of the information they were able to experience and carry on so you can build your future. When someone takes that away from you and take away the vehicle that allowed that transmission to take place, that is a crime against humanity. And so that was done to the African. And so today, our attitudes towards one another, our attitudes towards things African. For instance, I'm going to talk on Sunday about voodoo. But you mentioned voodoo in the African community, and you would get a reaction of hate, bitterness, scorn, rejection. Yet the word voodoo comes from the Ewe language, and it simply means the essence of God. Okay? Tell me one community that you know in Canada, Africa, or in America, or in Jamaica, or in Trinidad that addresses God by an African word. Not one. Not one. And you can go in every one of the Asian communities and European communities in Canada, and they have a European word or an Asian word for their divinity. But the Africans use either Asian words or European words. What's with that? Post-slavery trauma.
Wow, so you're on Sunday, you're speaking, overstanding true African religion and spiritual system. Now that's deep.
Let me just say this piece, but I know I cut you off a little bit because I'm old, so I get preference, right? One of the things I want you to understand, hold your question and then ask it, but I want to say this up front. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are fragments from the periphery of the voodoo system. Now, did that come out clear enough?
Yes.
Now you can proceed.
Well, definitely, that's a very powerful thing. I had the experience to be in Benin, attending one of the Vodun ceremony, and traveling and studying, and also in Haiti when I traveled there. So it's a powerful situation when you come into this. What are you going to speak about? Are you going to be traveling north, south, east, west of Africa and look at the systems, spiritual systems?
Well, I'll probably look at three primary systems: the system of the Yoruba, the system of the Akan, the system of Vodun, that means Benin, Togo, Nigeria, and the system in ancient Kemet. For those who don't know, that's ancient Egypt when it was black.
Yes.
Looking at those systems and then looking at the manifestation of those aspects of those systems in Haiti.
And then you're looking at the contrast comparisons, because they do have a lot of comparisons and similarities. And
because they're the same system. The only thing that's fundamentally different, there's a universal truth across Africa. But depending on the ecology you're in and how and when your understanding of that truth develops, that will determine the tools and the aesthetics and the cultural innovations you use to explain the truth to yourself.
So
if you live in the desert and you want to use a symbol for love, you certainly can't use an oak tree because there is no oak tree in the desert. So you've got to figure out how to use some aspects of the sand and its formation as a symbol for love. But if you're in the rainforest and you want to have a symbol for love, you certainly won't use sand. You will use something that is reflective of the rainforest to talk about that symbol for love. Or if you were in the savannas, you wouldn't use rainforest ecology nor desert ecology to try and use a symbol out of the ecology to explain love. But in each instance, you're trying to explain love.
Wow.
You understand?
That's beautiful. Now, we want to know, we want to get some age to you. We're going to put some age to you. Who were some of your teachers?
Well, wow. Of course, my grandma, my grandpa, my great-grandma, great-grandpa, they come first. My mom, my beautiful, gorgeous mom, who's also an ancestor now. My father, who's an ancestor. And then Malcolm X, his sister Ella, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Shashi McIntyre, Dr. Gina Bain. Those were my close people. Taught and educated me and guided me. Sister Kefa Neptis of the First World Alliance. Those are my comrades, my teachers, my mothers, my father.
What about books? Are you bringing any material to town with you? Have you written any books, any audios, any DVDs?
No, I will be bringing some of my DVDs on different topics and different subjects. I haven't written any books. I've been so busy writing the forwards and the afterwards for other people's books. I am going to try to bring a book that a friend of mine have written that I think is one of the most extraordinary pieces. It's called The Island of Memes, and it's by Dr. Wade Noble.
Oh, boy, that's a very powerful man, Baba Wade.
It is. And it's talking about Haiti, the unfinished revolution, and he breaks down Vodun in that book also.
Is that a new book?
It's a new book.
Because I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's deep. You know, he just returned from Haiti where he was visiting with our sister Baina Bello, and he had been to Haiti where for a few times, where he interfaced with our great ancestor Max Bouffoy. I love Max.
That's a very powerful man there.
He was the head of Vodun,
yes,
of all the Vodun shrine in Haiti. He went to the ancestors, but it's almost 2 years now.
Yes.
Wonderful man, a gentle giant. He was a scientist, a trained scientist by profession, an extraordinary priest of the Voodoo tradition, and an extraordinary grand master of the Voodoo philosophical system. You know.
Wow.
So I'm going to try to explain our system so that people understand Voodoo is nature and cosmology. It is the laws of nature and the laws of the cosmos being explained in scientific terms and being demonstrated using its energy manifestation.
And I guess because it was used to free the people in terms of the beginning of the revolution, a lot of people are trying to turn it into the most negative form, saying to people that's why Haiti is struggling.
Yep. When we made voodoo our primary thing, we freed ourselves. When we returned to the ways of our enemy, we re-enslaved ourselves mentally, intellectually, psychologically, psychospiritually, definitely economically and politically.
Wow. So you're coming. What do you want the Toronto people to get prepared for? Because you're coming on the 29th and 30th.
I would like for everybody who comes to my lecture to either bring your tape recorder, Bring your phone with your recording system on it, or bring a pencil and a pad and take notes. I will give you a lot of reference for reading material, and I will try my best to take my 71 years on this planet and interpret African history, African culture, African spirituality, and African reality to you as best I can.
Wow. And if they have, Elder, if they have some disagreements, they could also bring that too. If they're going to question it, because some people
bring your disagreement, bring your questions. I love to answer questions. I love to engage with my people. But please don't come with foolish contempt. Come wanting to learn. Come with your heart open. Come if you, I don't care what your religion is, there's only one God. There's only one divine reality. It doesn't matter what name you're calling it. But the problem is, religions have nothing to do with divinity, except that there are things that there are institutions that men have put together to explain divinity to themselves, or men have put together under the guise of this is the way we access divinity. And all religion emanates out of the culture of the people who is projecting it. And so if you're trying to understand divinity via the culture of your enemy and your murderers, I don't know how that works. Matter of fact, I know it don't work. And all of you can look around you and know it don't work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming to my lecture because your condition wouldn't be what they are.
Wow, so that's definitely powerful.
I can hear an amen to that one, or amen.
Amen Ra. So you
and we're just going to have fun talking about our ancestors and the beautiful traditions they left us and the beautiful history they left us. Even Christianity had its beginning and roots in Africa. Islam has its beginning and roots in Africa. Matter of fact, the Catholic Church comes into being 500 years after the Ethiopian Church. So talk to me. The Protestant Church of Western Europe, which most of us use, come into being 1,000 years after the Ethiopian Church. And the Ethiopian Church is not the same church we are seeing as the European Church. So let's study history. And before we had an Ethiopian church, we had a Nubian church, meaning a Sudanese church, which is an older system than even the Ethiopian system. So I'll discuss that a little bit.
Yes, and it's powerful. This is
an understanding that some people borrowed your way of worshiping and knowing divinity and repackage it in their culture, wrapped in their racist point of view and their false presentation of images, and presented that back to you under duress, and now having you thinking that is the only spiritual reality in the world. And even if it doesn't work for you and your people, fear is so embedded in your subconscious, you can't let go. And yet you say, honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long upon the earth. But I know you whisper quietly, as long as your mother and father is not African, not black. But that may be a little harsh. Let me back up off of that. I just want to give you a sense of what I'm talking about.
Beautiful, beautiful. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give out this information. Is there any way people can get a hold of you online, anywhere?
Yeah, ProfessorSmallAfricanWorld.com, ProfessorSmallAfricanWorld.com, or you can go to Facebook and just go to James, James, Small, Small, on Facebook, or you can, go to YouTube and just put in Professor James Small. There's hundreds of my DVDs and on YouTube, even though I haven't posted any. They were all posted by young people who heard it and thought they wanted to share it. But they're there. And I've been doing these lecturing for close to 45, nearly 50 years, actually.
Wow.
I've been lecturing. That's a long time. I've been lecturing for 50 years. I must be getting old now. That's a long time.
Yes, my good brother Ushek is we're on Timbuktu Radio here and down here at Radio Regent. He has a few words to say to you. So before you go, my brother Ushek,
Professor Small, it's just edutaining listening to your education on the airwaves, and it's a pleasure to have you. And we look forward to definitely having you. But my question is, being so grounded, born in the diaspora, proud African, and still holding Africa tall, when Africa herself is so lost, where every corner, every day, there are praise and worship churches spreading all over. The confusion of the African child is more confused in the continent than anywhere else.
That's very true, and that's why wherever the African consciousness is, we have a responsibility to African consciousness wherever it is, on the continent or off the continent. We have the same African gene pool, we have the same African genesis, and we have responsibility to every African on this planet.
I agree, Professor. My task or my question is, when you travel to the motherland, how have you, or what are the expectations that you are going to be looking forward to with these preacher men who are going to think that you are coming with, how will I say, an uneducated fact of primitivity?
Well, that's why I always come. Malcolm says, know the truth. And he was mimicking the Bible. And the truth will set you free. He says, truth alone will set you free. And so for most people should know, I have a degree in Christian theology, a doctorate, by the way. I grew up in a Baptist church with a grandfather who was a Christian minister. I was a Muslim imam for 18 years and went to Mecca twice. So I'm also a Hajj. So I can sit and communicate with my brothers and sisters from any of these disciplines and try to explain what I've learned and what I've learned from my teachers and my ancestors and what I know and what I understand and what I know in their subconscious they also know but are afraid to express. And that is the truth, that we are all nothing more than an expression of an aspect of God's divine essence having this human experience.
I can't wait to break.
That's what voodoo is all about.
I can't wait to break bread with you, Professor.
Knowing that you're God, having the human experience.
Fantastic. The last thing, this is outside, but it definitely is part of your forte. These days, in the musical world, that have actually engaged all parties from the global village dancing to African music with different names. Call it hip-hop, call it reggae, call it calypso, you name it. It has its source, just like religion, you said, from Africa. But there is this tormenting trend that hip-hop, the griots music, have been hijacked with some that only patronize the N-word that so many people fought.
You kind of faded on me on that laugh.
Sorry about that. I was trying to come with this N-word that have been glorified, or the F-word that have been glorified in most of our hip-hop or dance music. What message would my professor leave on the airwaves to comfort my soul and declench me from all those polluted N and F words that is over on the records and CDs and USBs and MP3s?
Well, don't confuse what your enemy does with what you have created with your creation. If we just take hip-hop, it did not come out of the enemy's belly, nor did it come out profane. But when the enemy saw your blessing and your power with words, without any instrument which he had denied you access to, without any knowledge of writing the musical note which he had denied you access to, and yet you could create the most dynamic rhythms in the world, then they use their money and their profanity to take it over and to take weak-minded, unconscious people and project them to project poison using your beautiful rhythms and rhymes and ethics, you know. And if we go back and we can listen to some of our reggae music, we can, where they, for money, we put in poison lyrics behind our dynamic rhythm. We can look at our rhythm and blues where for money people put poison. So go back to the essence of things. All of our music comes out of our deep soul, and most of our beats and our rhythm comes from our heartbeat and one of the 8 pulse beats that represent the different organs in our body as it finds harmony with the rest of the rhythm that other aspects of nature is giving off. And so music, one African scholar says, make you human beings.
Wow.
When you're dealing with real music, when I'm taking the God in me and vibrating it in a rhythm, using lyrics to talk about our history and our beauty, and then your God in you feels my vibration as a twin vibration and bonds with it. That's the music of love. That's about African people. And we make it everywhere in the world that we are. But we have an enemy who have money and power and knows how to come in and take it and pervert it and misdirect it, because he understands if he doesn't do that, we may become informed and instructed in how to think and how to behave and how to act as godly beings one towards the other. So I'll do a piece of music, because music is essential to the Vodun system. Music is essential to African spiritual culture. Music is essential for the liberation of the African mind.
Wow. With that said, Professor, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I think I might reach out to you. I think I might reach out to you before the Monday or so, and we might have to do another session on the radio again, because I don't think I touched the surface. But it's a good start, and I want to thank you. My brother wants to thank you, and all of Toronto, Canada. I want to thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday, the April 29th, and Sunday.
I haven't been there in almost 35 years. I need to come back.
One love.
It's been a long time. One love. Peace and blessings.
So we want to thank Professor James Small. He's going to be here Saturday, April the 29th, post-slavery trauma syndrome disorder, and it's a lecture. It's going to be at York University. It's going to be from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can come early. Our vendors will be there. You can get your tickets at Treasure Isle Knowledge Bookstore, Toronto Plaza, Hotel Golden Stool in Brampton. You can call 647-919-0466, Brother Kofi. On Sunday, he will be doing another lecture at the hotel down there at 1677 Wilson Avenue. And this one is called Overstanding True African Religion and Spiritual Systems, Learning Hidden History. And the lecture is from Professor James Small. It's $20 for tickets for both days, $35 for 2 days. If you get tickets for 2 days, if you're a student, it's $10. We're asking you to come out, come and support this lecture, come and support African knowledge. Call 647-919-0466. Brother Sankofa, Timbuktu Radio, signing off. Yushe Karoma is inside here, is gearing up for another Outerview. Much love.
Brother Sankofa, thank you very much for blessing the airwaves. It's always a home. You don't need to have a date or a visa or a passport. Come on down anytime and let's share the dish to the global African village.